Welcome back to the Tavern, World Builders! Today we are talking about the first book in the sci-fi series The Expanse, Leviathan Wakes, by James S.A. Corey. Beware, here there be spoilers. Grab an ale, non-alcoholic always available, and pull up a chair. I'm Emma, your friendly barkeep, along with Allison.
Hello!
And Christiana.
Hi!
And we are so happy to have you here. Cheers!
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 So, Leviathan Wakes takes place in a future where humanity has colonized most of the solar system. The story kicks off with an ice-hauling ship, the Canterbury, receiving a distress signal. 5 members of the crew, Executive Officer Jim Holden, Chief Engineer Naomi Nagata, Pilot Alex Kamal, Engineer Amos Burton, and Medic Shed Garvey, are dispatched to investigate. They find an abandoned ship and a fake distress beacon containing Martian technology, and realize that the signal was meant to lure them there. A stealth warship arrives and destroys the Canterbury. Holden broadcasts these events to the rest of the human outposts, which starts a war between Mars and the Belt. The Belt being one of these areas where humans have colonized outside of sort of Earth and Mars and the inner planets. The 5 survivors are ordered to rendezvous with the Martian battleship Donegal, which is alarming since everyone now thinks Mars is behind the attack on the Canterbury. However, the Donegal's captain swears they are not responsible. Similar stealth ships show up and destroy the Donegal, but our motley crew, now numbering 4, as Shed was killed during the action, escape on a smaller Martian warship, which they rename the Rocinante. Meanwhile, Detective Joe Miller, on Ceres Station, is contracted to find Julie Mao, the daughter of a wealthy family. As he looks into her disappearance, the OPA, short for the Outer Planets Alliance, which is a radical group dedicated to gaining Belter independence from Earth and Mars, and his Ceres employers warn him to stop searching, and he's fired when he refuses. He learns that Julie was aboard the ship with the fake distress beacon, and her disappearance is connected to what happened to the Canterbury. Clues lead Miller to Eros, another space station, where his path crosses with Holden and the Rocinante crew. Together, they find Julie's body in a hotel room. She's been infected with some mysterious organic substance, which grows when exposed to radiation. They recover data Julie left behind, which includes the coordinates of an asteroid where one of the ships that attacked the Canterbury is docked. Before they can leave, radiation alerts blare, and security escorts people into shelters, which turn out to be a master plan by an Earth-based company called Protogen. The people in the shelters are infected with the same thing as Julie, and the disease spreads throughout the station. Miller and the Rocinante crew manage to escape and head to the coordinates Julie left, where they discover that the infection is a biological weapon left by ancient aliens. A scientist who works for Protogen thinks that it is the key to evolutionary change. Eros was a mass experiment to see what the substance, which they call protomolecule, would do, and instigating a war was to distract everyone from what they were doing. The Rocinante crew find a sample of the protomolecule aboard the ship and take it with them. With the OPA, the Rocinante crew and Miller attack Protogen's secret base in the Belt and capture the lead scientist, who Miller executes. The OPA tries to crash a large ship into Eros to send it into the sun and destroy the experiment. Miller stays on Eros with a bomb to ensure no one can capture it in the meantime. But Eros inexplicably moves to avoid the ship and starts to move toward Earth at a speed no human ship can match. Miller, still on Eros, realizes the station is being guided by Julie, who's still alive, sort of, and is somehow guiding the protomolecule and flying the station. Miller convinces her to change course to Venus, sacrificing himself as the protomolecule takes him over as well. The book ends with Holden meeting a leader of the OPA who he gave the sample of the protomolecule to. A peace conference is about to occur, and the book ends.
Dun dun dun!
Dun.
Also,
To be
if
continued.
you heard some cat meows in the background, that was just some of our tavern kitties.
That was Arthur. He wants to be heard. With that description out of the way, which, man, good job, Allison, for summarizing that for us.
It's a very big book.
A lot happens in this book. Yes. It's definitely worth reading if you have not yet read it. I highly recommend. But I think that brings us right on over to Happy Hour. So here's where we chat about how we felt about the book. And I already gave it away a little bit, but I really enjoyed this book.
Yay!
I thought that it was awesome. But I will toss over to Allison if you want to quickly explain to us sort of why you picked the book and your thoughts on it, both reading it the first time as well as reading it again for the podcast.
So I watched the show first, and I really loved it. It's a really good show. So if you like the books, definitely recommend checking out the show. It's got great acting. The sets are really nice. It's pretty true to the book, at least to the first.
Did we say the
couple
name
books.
of the show yet?
It's called The Expanse, the same as the
Yes,
book
okay.
series name. It's pretty true to at least the first couple books, because I haven't read the whole series yet, but like the first book and the first season cover the same events. And it's really good. And so after I watched the show, I wanted to read the book. And so I listened to the audiobook with my husband, and we both really liked it. And so this time I read the book instead of listening to it. So I've done all of the 3 types of media. And I really liked it second time too. Not really any surprises. It's just really well written. It's enjoyable to read. The characters are really neat. We're going to talk about those later, so I won't go into too many spoilers there. But what did you two think? So Emma loved it. What about you, Christiana?
I really liked it. I love a
Yay!
good kind of meaty sci-fi like this where
Yes.
the
Space
world
opera.
building is so dense. I also just love politics and space, which I know
there's
is
so
what a
much
lot
of
of
that in
sci-fi
here.
is, but there's like, this is the politics and space book.
Yes.
And I really enjoy kind of that. It was a good mix of like these larger political machinations and how it impacts the world. And then also that kind of small character storytelling where you're really getting into someone's head and figuring out their motivations and things like that. So I really enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm. I agree with a lot of what you guys said about like the characters being really done, the story and the politics are really well done. It was also just written really well at a line level, which I really appreciate. And sometimes it's like, you know, we've had, I feel like, books recently where it's been like, oh, I like the story, but like the craft maybe wasn't where I like it for enjoying. And I thought that this one was like so well written. Like I was reading it as an ebook and I have a bunch of passages highlighted because I just like loved the individual, like the way the words worked and like the turn of phrase and everything. So I really appreciated that as well, which is a nice thing to have. So I felt like it was the whole package. It was great.
Yeah, and the author is actually 2 people.
Yes, which is very
Essay
cool.
Corey is actually 2 guys, I think.
Yes, Ty Frank and Daniel Abraham.
Yeah, so Emma, you have in the notes here, which I didn't know before, that Frank wrote Holden's chapters and Abraham wrote Miller. So I thought that was neat.
Yes.
I didn't know that, and it makes so much sense now, like hearing that after the fact, because I kept thinking like, wow, they're doing it. I assumed it was one person. I'm like, they're doing a fantastic job at having such distinct voices between each point of view. That's really good.
But it also felt cohesive.
Very cohesive.
Yeah, apparently their writing process was they each wrote their individual chapters, but then they swapped and would edit each other's chapters. So it like they all had a blend of both writers. Cool. And another fun fact is actually both Frank and Abraham have worked very closely with George R.R. Martin in various capacities. Cool. Like they worked on like finishing one of his old manuscripts with him, and like one of them worked as his assistant for a while, which I also thought made a lot of sense because some of the like world building and writing and stuff does feel sort of reminiscent of
influence.
Martin. Like which is cool. So
I would definitely say this is not the book or series that I would give to a friend if I'm trying to convince them to get into sci-fi.
No.
Like it's like perfect sci-fi, but it's just so big. There's so much.
I recommend the show to someone.
Yes, I would recommend the show, I think.
Probably
I started watching the show after
did you? What do you think?
The audiobook for this. I'm only like 1 episode in and I quite enjoy it. I already recommended it to my dad because he loves sci-fi stuff too. And I was like, oh, this is right up his alley. So I think that's maybe my one minor complaint is that it's not.
I don't think that's a complaint.
I guess not really a complaint.
I think it's for.
But it being for different audiences is fine.
I was
like it's for people who
going
love
to
sci-fi.
say though, it's not easy reading. Is maybe my like teeny tiny complaint. I think that's a good thing. I think people need to read hard and dense and thought-provoking books.
There's a lot in there.
But there's just it's a lot to balance in your head at once. So if you're like, even if you love sci-fi and you're like, I'm just kind of looking for like a beach read. This is not
a beach read.
This is not that.
No.
But it's awesome, and you need
there's
to read
some books
it,
that you can kind of skim passages and like still get the gist, and this one you can't. Like the beginning of the page and the end of the page, you're in a completely like 8 things have happened, and you will not. Yeah, you can't skim. It's definitely like a all your attention.
You have to be
Surprised
very
I like it
engaged.
so much because I normally don't like politically dense books. But I think the reason I don't like that is because often the character development is sacrificed for those overarching political things going on. And in this one, that is not the case. The characters are really great. So,
and I think sometimes too, the kind of political books can fall into this trap of like, it's just a lot of conversations and witty dialogue instead of things actually happening.
And there's so much action in this.
A lot of meetings, not a lot of action. And this one is all action. So,
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, with us clearly wanting to get into the meaty action of it, let's head over to Tavern Talk. So Alice had lead us through our discussion of the world building and the meat of the book. So what do you have for us to talk about?
Well, I mentioned character already, so let's start there. So the book is narrated by two people. Jim Holden, who is the captain? Yeah, the captain of the Rocinante crew.
Yeah.
And then Miller, I forget what his first name is. It's not mentioned very much. They usually just call him Miller. Joe Miller. Who is...
he's usually just Miller.
Who is a detective on Ceres. And I find this really interesting because Miller's chapters almost read like a hard-boiled detective novel.
They do.
Because he's given this case, and he's very much got that sort of gruff, I don't care personality that is reminiscent of hard-boiled detective fiction, and he's investigating a missing person. And Ceres is a very gritty sort of place. It feels grimy and dirty, and maybe I'm partly getting that from the show, but also I think in the book too, is very, very much feels like... It feels like every Belter place is kind of like that. It's not shiny and new. It's old and barely holding together, and they're just surviving out here on their stations. And so I really liked that. I mean, hard-boiled detective isn't my favorite genre, but I still really enjoyed it in this context. How did you guys feel about it?
I love a detective story, and I love kind of like loose morals.
Yeah.
You know, hacking darts at the scene of the crime kind of story. So very much enjoyed his chapters. And I think that's what sold me on it so quick into the book. I feel like usually with, like a really big world building thing like this, or like a high fantasy, for example, like stories that do have a huge world and a lot of things to keep together. Having Miller, like his chapter immediately, I was like, oh, okay. So we have like this really big thing going on. But then it was really nice to kind of like take a break and go into that small, like this is just a missing persons case on this grimy old station kind of thing. And I was like, oh, that's nice. That contrast felt really good. And I was hooked immediately. I was like, okay, there's more going on than just, big space battles. So
yeah, I'm not usually a like mystery or detective novel person, but I did really like Miller's, and I'm trying to figure out why. And I think it's because they did a really good job at revealing information at the right time. Like, to me, it didn't, even though he was a detective and there was some mystery, it didn't feel like a mystery novel. Like, it's still very much an action novel, even in his chapters.
Yeah.
So I didn't feel like I was frustrated with like, oh man, who did this? Or like, what's that? Like, there was enough stuff happening all the time that I wasn't like obsessing about the things we didn't know. And I felt confident that we were going to get stuff revealed to us, which I appreciated.
I love mystery and detective fiction. Just to be clear, it's hard-boiled specifically. That is not my favorite. So I think that's maybe why I was like, I want to go back to Holden. I like Holden's chapters. Also, Holden is like the traditional space opera type. His chapters were more that.
Idealistic.
Oh yeah, also I related more to him because he's the good guy and he's so naive. We could talk more about that.
I was going to say, he's a tiny bit stupid, and I really like that about him.
He's
like, he just
a bit stupid.
He's like, when you're like playing D&D with friends, he's like the paladin. He's like the trope of every paladin, you know what I mean? Where he's like, I will do what's just and right, and then just does something incredibly stupid in the name of justice. Yeah.
So we're already talking about it. So these two act kind of as foils for each other. They're very different. Holden is that White Knight character, gonna do the right thing. Miller is, I will kill whoever gets in my way and I won't care about it.
Yeah, which interestingly, he is also though I will do the right thing. It's just his do the version of do the right thing
His
has a lot
version
more
is
questionable
different. Yeah,
actions in
exactly.
it than
So they're so interesting, and it's so interesting when they finally meet, and Miller almost becomes a part of the crew, but then he shoots someone without warning.
Bad guy. Yeah.
He shoots a scientist.
Well, without due process.
Yes, without due process, and at that point, Holden is like, nope, you're out. You're not on the crew anymore. And I found that just so interesting how they behave differently. And it really comes to a head when, so at the very beginning, Holden has this information. The Canterbury has been destroyed. They found a battery with a Martian stamp on it. Like, that's all they found. Which it really isn't that much proof that Mars was behind the attack. But it's what they found, and he just presents those facts. And it's very naive, as Christiana said, because that starts a war.
Yeah.
But it's also, he's also like, but people deserve to know the truth. Like, this is what we found. I'm just showing the people. And so, like, I understand that, but then later on, the same thing happens. They find evidence of Earth's involvement in a different attack. And Miller's like, you cannot do this again. Like, you can't do this a second time. It's going to blow up in your face. You're going to make Earth start attacking people. And Holden is like, but they have to know. Like, I have to share the truth. It's just, and I can see both sides. I can understand Holden wanting to present what they discovered because people deserve to know. And I also understand Miller being like, you're being stupid, boy. Like, this is going to cause ripples and problems, and we don't know for sure what this means. Like, we did find this, but it also seems extra stupid the second time, because he knows what happened the first time.
Yeah.
And that maybe someone is planting evidence.
I feel like you're more generous than I am, because I'm like, I don't see Holden's side. Like, I see his side, because you see his character, I understand where he's coming from, but, like, he's not telling the truth. Like, that's not the truth. It literally is a lie that is planted by somebody. It's a stray fact and, like, is not
Well, it's what he found.
Truth.
Like, it is the truth, as in he found this thing. But it's tough.
Yeah. I mean, it's the reality. The reality is they found
evidence.
Battery with a Martian thing on it. But that's not, like, saying it like that is not actually presenting the truth, because saying that presents it as Mars attacked us, even though he didn't say that. So, yeah, I love him, and I love his idealism, but he's an idiot.
Yeah.
Kind
of stupid.
So dumb.
I liked both of those as narrators. Why do you think they were picked as narrators, those two characters?
For Miller, there wasn't really a good alternative. Like, there wasn't anybody else on series who would have been a good option if you like to have that, like, investigative and, like, that perspective.
Yep.
I'm trying to think if somebody else on the Rocinante would have been
Could have Naomi, maybe.
I think, I was just thinking Naomi would be interesting, because especially with the kind of, like, admission of love at the end, being like, oh, like, I've had it bad for you for, like, 4 years, but I know what kind of guy you are, and I don't have time for that. I immediately was like, oh, I wish, or even if there was, like, 3 protagonists, like, I would love a couple chapters in her head to see what that's like, having to work with him and work through that. Yeah.
Holden also mentions that at one point, he realizes he's always looking to her when he doesn't know what to do.
Yes.
So she's very much almost in charge, even though he's the captain, which is funny. So I can't remember if the later books, I think the later books might split off and we get different narrators. So that could be fun. I'm definitely
Miller ostensibly dies at the end of this one.
Probably not him, but other characters.
Although I'm assuming he's not really dead. I'm assuming we don't actually see a body.
Yeah.
There's no way he's dead, but
I know.
That's how I
I know
feel
spoilers. I
he's
say
dead.
and actually, so Amos is one of the most interesting characters in the series, but not quite in this book. He doesn't quite, I don't think the authors quite grasped what they were doing with him until later, but he's so interesting. He doesn't really have any morals of his own, and he uses Naomi to tell him what is the right or wrong thing to do. And sometimes Holden. So that plays
he's kind of like like in this he was kind of like the ultimate guard dog.
Yes.
Like he was just like loyal, and it's like, you need me to do this, absolutely. Like, you want me to bust this door down?
You want me to kill someone? Sure.
I just broke my leg.
If you tell me to, I will do it, because I trust that you know what's the right thing to do. Yeah, he's really
which is a very interesting character. I think though, once you had either picked Holden or Miller, the other one had to be because of that foil. Like, you did need to have the like two opposite sides, and they're also both like very like kind of screwed up people, like very flawed. Like, Miller is divorced. I think like not even recently. I think it's like been many years, but he's like never recovered from it. He's an alcoholic. He discovers that he's like not actually hiding it very well and is not very good at his job. And then you also have Holden, who is like this, like, I don't know how I would label his issue. Like, I don't think his stuff is as clearly categorized, but like, so for example, his whole thing about like how he's in love with Naomi, but it's like very clear that like she even calls this out later. Like, he only starts noticing her once everybody else on the ship is dead and she's the last woman there. Like, he's pining over a different woman at the beginning of the novel. So like, he's also not just this perfect guy. Oh yeah. And then Miller also, I put in strong quotes, falls in love with Julie as he's like researching her and her case, and like starts like,
it's very creepy, but I enjoy it.
Miller's obsession is so weird.
Like, yeah, they're both very damaged.
I read his obsession this time as he's not so much in love with her. It's still kind of creepy, but it's more he sees what he wants to be in her, so he admires her so much because he's so jaded and just cynical, and she is passionate about what she wants. She's standing up for the OPA, even though she comes from this other rich, privileged society and wouldn't have to do anything for them. And so he sees that and is like, I want that passion. Like, I miss that in my life. I want to have, this. He could almost feel the same about Holden, but he puts Julie on that pedestal. And it is kind of creepy because he's never even met her.
I think in the case of Holden and Miller, their morals, both their problem is their morals, right? For Miller, it's the lack thereof. And for Holden, it's holding them too strongly. Like, he just rushes ahead based off of what he thinks is right. And is like, well, no, this is the objectively correct decision because it aligns with me morally. I can't believe you would think anything other, right?
This is, I think, is an interesting conversation because, like, I push back on the, like, Miller doesn't have morals.
I was just going to say
I think Miller also has very strong morals. I just think that they have
go about it differently.
Morals, but they're both very strongly set. But I think you're right that, like, their problem is both their morals, and that they are so, like, strongly driven by those. They're just, strongly driven to perhaps do dumb stuff because of that.
I think Miller does have morals. He just doesn't care how he goes about doing the right thing, whereas Holden very much cares. There's a point where Holden has to choose, do I kill my crew on the Rocinante to save the Earth? That's sort of what's presented as the option. And he decides not to kill the crew, not to save the few for the many, which is really interesting because he is that white knight character that kind of should choose the many, but he doesn't. He does the selfish thing, which I really liked, that his found family became too important.
Yeah, I think that Holden wants to do things the right way and Miller wants to do the right thing, is how I would.
Well, Holden also wants to do the right thing, but do the right way along the way. The right things along the way to the right thing.
I do also find it interesting, and something that I really appreciated about it is that I do like that they kicked Miller. He was like, you're not a part of the crew once he killed the scientist, because I think too often when you have kind of, for lack of a better term, like the chaotic neutral or chaotic good character, oftentimes I feel like authors will use that character as a way to do the obvious thing that needs to be done whilst letting their main character remain the squeaky clean, cute little cinnamon bun. You know what I mean? Where it's like, oh, well, you can't be mad at him because he didn't do it. The little chaos goblin next to him did. Oh, our good guy is still the good guy. You know what I mean? So I like that there was
they still do have Amos to do the terrible things for them. But yeah.
Yeah, which is interesting that, like, Holden doesn't have that same, like, disdain and distrust for Amos, even though he would absolutely do the exact same stuff that Miller would.
But the difference is that Amos waits for Holden or Naomi to say so.
Yes, it's because he's under Holden's control.
Yeah.
So it's like Holden only trusts himself and doesn't trust, like, other people's assessments or judgments of things if they're in conflict with his perspective on things, which I think is also kind of a character flaw.
Well, yeah, that's definitely the case, because there's a point where the OPA want to hire out their ship to go do something, pick someone up, and Holden's like, no, we'll go. I don't trust anyone else to do this. Like, we'll go do it.
Also, I found it kind of funny when they were trying to escape Eros, and he's like, okay, if we're not back in 3 hours, you guys leave without us.
Yeah.
And then they come back later than 3 hours, and he's like, they left?
I know. He's like, I didn't think they really would.
No.
I didn't think they actually would. And I'm like, what? You told them that, though.
One thing I also liked is how the characters are tied to the world building, as they somewhat represent the conflict in the solar system, because the 3 areas of the solar system are represented by each of the crew. So Naomi is the Belter, Amos and Holden are from Earth, and Alex is from Mars. So I really like that little nod to, hey, these people are all from the opposite ends of the war, and they're able to work together and be a family. I really liked that.
And also, I think Miller is a Belter? Is that right?
Yeah.
Or where was he from?
Miller is also
Born and raised
a
on
Belter.
Ceres Station.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
I don't remember the one guy who dies. I forget everything about him. Every time I reread and rewatch the show, I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot that guy exists, because he dies pretty fast.
Yeah, I mean, he dies real quick. I would, at this point, categorize them as a family. Like, I don't know if they're a found family in this book.
It's definitely heading in that
I didn't get that vibe.
Maybe not yet.
Yeah, they're definitely close.
But they pretty much become
that's interesting.
That later. For sure.
Mm-hmm.
I weirdly related to that. So, like, with this politics of, Earth, Mars, and Belters all hating each other, this is one story where I felt like the world building really, really benefited from fake racism. I hate saying that, but there's often stories where I'm like, challenge yourself. Does there need to be this kind of oppression in this world, or are we just taking that from our lived experiences, right? This is one where I'm like, no, it's actually quite integral to the plot. And also just, I think, makes the worlds a lot richer.
Yeah. It's also our world, but in the future, so I totally believe that racism continues on.
Yeah.
And I think when it becomes a problem to what, like you said, like, oh, does this have to exist in our world? I think it's when it's like just automatically assumed as opposed to like intention being thought in. It's like, oh, well, these have to be the gender roles because that's just what they are. And it's like, no, you don't have to. But like for this one, it's like very clear that they intentionally like thought about what the relationships between these planets would be like, and like humans in the outer system versus the inner system. And like it was an intentional thing and not a like, blind to prejudice sort of thing.
Yeah, they showcase that really well with Miller's chapters and his, I want to say sidekick, but that's not his co-worker, detective, who was
I
not
really
from
liked
the
those
Belts.
discussions.
Yeah. And he's constantly upset that he can't fit in here. And Miller's like, it's never going to change. So get used to it or leave, basically. And he does end up leaving largely because of that, I think.
Yeah, well, things start to get really bad with the like violence against people from other places, and so he tells his partner, he's like, you have to leave because someone just got like beaten to death. Like you have to, like it's gonna explode here, you better get out of here. And then he's shown to like thrive once he leaves. Like they do video calls, and he's like described as like looking way better and like not looking all like hollow and frightened.
I feel bad for him.
Yeah, well, his life seems to be better now.
I mean, maybe I shouldn't be saying I feel bad for the privileged boy who didn't fit in with the underprivileged people. Because the Belters really have it rough. They are treated like the dregs of society, so yeah.
Yeah, that's an interesting one, though, because, like, his partner is treated bad on series. So it is, like, even though the Belters are oppressed, they can still be, shitty and prejudiced to other people. So I think it's still fair to, like, feel bad for him because he's, Although then it also is like, oh, do I feel poorly for the fictional cop? But because the people that yeah, it is a whole level of like, who do we feel bad for? But like, we can have some sympathy.
I mean, yeah, the way his story is presented, I think we're supposed to feel some sympathy, but also recognize that the Belters have it terribly. And we learn more about the Belters in later books, too.
Yeah, like they're very much exploited for Earth and Mars's gain and like, looked down on and
seen as almost not human anymore because their physiology is also a little bit different at this point. They are quite elongated. They're really tall just from living out in space. And I think their bone density is different, too.
Yeah, I loved that world building. I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, Naomi is described as being like 2 meters tall or something outrageous. I'm like, oh, yeah. Because she's not that in the show. She's pretty normal height in the show. Probably because it would be expensive to make her so tall in every scene.
I guess they could have gotten a tall actress.
That's true.
Get Gwendolyn Christie in a
your
pair
choices
of
are
heels in there.
Ooh, yeah.
They may also, I'm wondering if they made the choice to make her seem more human so we relate to her more because she ends up being a romantic interest for Holden later. And I don't want that to be the reason.
Yeah.
Because I think we can relate to aliens. But I digress.
It's also expensive, like CGI.
Yeah, that's kind of where I think maybe
prosthetics or whatever is,
So there's a lot going on politically in this book, but like Christiana mentioned earlier, they don't have a lot of scenes of just people talking about it, which actually is kind of funny because in the second book, they introduce a senator character and you do get more like board meetings and peace talks and stuff like that in the second book, but by that time I'm so hooked that I'm not bored by it.
Yeah, and I think you would kind of have to do that to some extent because, okay, here's my experience working in political communications my whole career. Trying to explain to someone what a parliamentary committee is by just making them watch a parliamentary committee webcast, like, won't actually explain the politics of anything. You know what I mean? Like, it's just going to be a lot of line-by-line reading of legislation, and you're like, what are they even doing, right? Even in our real life today, I think there has to be a base level understanding of, in Canada's case, a Westminster Parliament and how it works, and before you could get excited about like, oh, this bill is about to be passed through, and there's major implications for that, right? And I think it's kind of the same in any sort of world building where it's really politics heavy. I think it's important to show the impact of the politics first, get a base level understanding of those politics and how they work before you start going into the like, okay, and now here's the senator and here's what they're doing. And here, like, you have to see those impacts before you can kind of start getting really excited about the machinations that go on behind all that, right?
And that's exactly what they did in this book, too.
Yeah, exactly.
You see the impact before we get any real background. Holden does think a little bit about, so you get some of his thoughts about the relationship between Mars and the Belt and the UN.
But it's like,
Earth.
The average Canadian citizen will have a somewhat understanding of our relationship to another country, but we might not necessarily understand precisely what a trade deal looks like or how that goes through.
Yeah, because he's not a government official. He's just a grunt.
So I think he's
hauling ice.
He's a Yeah, he's a really good character to introduce us to that world.
Yeah.
Right? Because he would only have kind of a base level understanding of it until he gets sucked into this madness.
Yeah, I also really liked the Belter lingo.
Yeah, that was fun. It was like a mix of English, and then there's also like French and Spanish, and then also just like kind of made up slang. Which is very fun. It's a very cool kind of dialect.
There's a scene where he's talking to someone else in that Belter lingo, and the other detective is standing there listening to them, and after the character leaves, he's like, I had no idea what you just said. And I'm like, me neither. I have no idea what was just said. I didn't understand a word of it. So that was neat. Because at least you're like, okay, I'm not supposed to understand this.
I love when authors use slang in their books. That's what I feel like is one of the like small world building details that really makes a world feel real. Even if it's just like a couple words thrown in, like I feel like they did a lot more with it. Like that had full sentences and context conversations in kind of Belter lingo. Sometimes it's just a word here or there. And I think even that's enough to just make it feel like, oh yeah, there was some thought about like how people live and talk and interact with their world and how language would change over time. And it's very fun. I love it.
There's one part where I think he's talking about a specific section of the spaceship, but it was like originally colonized by a bunch of people from Texas. And he's like, everyone has a Texan accent. It's like a plague.
That actually, people. I wrote down that quote. That's from Mars. So a section of Mars. So the Mariner Valley in Mars was settled by East Indians, Chinese, and a small contingent of Texans. And apparently the drawl was viral because they all had it now. Yeah. I thought that was hilarious. Everyone got the Texan accent.
That's so funny. I love that.
I also loved that.
What did we think of the proto-molecule, the like kind of big bad of the book?
It was really mysterious, and the scientific lingo jargon was real. In the sections that tried to explain it, I was like, I don't understand what this is. It's some sort of thing that maybe changes human genetics, but also just kills them because it's not doing what it's supposed to, or I don't know.
I was the tiniest bit disappointed that this protomolecule wasn't like an alien race in and of itself.
Oh.
Because at first, like with the opening scene where it's like, you know, taking over the ship and absorbing someone, I was like, I hope this is like a fungus that's sentient or something. You know what I mean?
It is. Like,
it is,
Julie
I guess.
Sort of combines with it. But it's not really her anymore.
It's not really her, but it's following her wishes, not its wishes.
Yeah, that's true.
You know?
Yeah, so. Like it's kind of like, well, it's absorbed her consciousness. And I think the book described like, because she was the first sort of complex life form that it had done that with, it kind of like her consciousness became sort of its consciousness or like imprinted into it or something. Because basically I don't think we've described it very much, but this proto-molecule basically like breaks down people into like goo and like absorbs them. So there's some great body horror in this book of like someone's head being like popping out of this goo or like intestines and rib cages, and it's very gory, and I loved it. It was
terrific. For some reason,
it's like
the scientists think that it's the key to the next form of humanity. Like maybe they can make superpowers with it or something. Like that's why they're doing these experiments. They think it's gonna be a great thing for humanity, but it just seems to kill everyone.
Yeah.
Well, that was why they're trying to figure it out, right? Because they're like, well, it hasn't had enough biomass to actually figure out what it does. Let's let it loose on 1 million people.
See what happens. Why not? What could go wrong?
Horrifying. Yeah. So, because I think the idea is that it has the ability to, like, I don't know, if it can break down our components, what could it, like, turn us into if we could figure out how to harness it properly, was kind of my understanding of, like, you know, we could then make ourselves gods.
And it's
not but first we have to figure out what it does.
It's just sitting on Venus.
No.
So what will happen?
And in this, like, human soup sort of
I'm gonna tell myself that it gains sentience.
Tentacle soup.
I don't know why. I just wanted it. I think I wanted it to have its own motivations, if that makes sense, like another player on the board, so to speak.
That's fair. I kind of liked it the way it was,
being a genetic
because
weapon.
there is something really scary about a virus that doesn't have a mind. It just replicates itself, you know?
There's no reasoning with it.
Yeah, you can reason with it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious to see where the story takes it. I mean, I do know some from the show, but I want to read the rest of the books.
I'm interested to see where it goes, because there's like 8 books in this series or something, I think. Although I've heard that they kind of are, I was reading that they kind of are like duologies, so like 1 and 2 is kind of a duology, and then 3 and 4 are kind of like, so it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then 7, 8, 9 or something like that are kind of like mini duologies inside this like larger
I'm going to finish the story series for sure.
Yeah, I think I'm going to read it. It might take me a while to
they are
kind
big
of hop between series most of the time, but I do want to read it. Yeah, it was really good.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a good way to end.
Cool. Well, then, that means it is time for last call. So here are some concluding thoughts and questions from us that we think you can take from Leviathan Wakes to apply to your own world building and story crafting. Allison, what advice do you have for us?
My advice is pretty simple. You don't have to start from scratch when world building in sci-fi and fantasy if you don't want to. You can take what already exists, take what you know and expand. Pun intended. So the Expanse really does just take our solar system and our world and is like, what if we had this technology and we populated the solar system? And they try to stay to science that is at least possible with the drives and things that they're using. I don't know how scientific the protomolecule is, but the other tech that they use. And the, I really liked the concoction they get injected with when they go too fast in the spaceships. I'm like, oh, that sounds terrible. And that's really neat.
Yeah, to help them counteract the G-forces. Yeah. I also like the way they did tech, because they didn't try to, sometimes you get like, or people get bogged down with like, you know, feeling like it needs to all your science has to make sense. And it's like, well, you can't, at a certain point that's not going to work because it is sci-fi. It's not real science. And in this one, they're just like, how do we do this like faster than light travel? We have a drive. We have a special drive that does it. That's enough. You don't need to know like how it works or anything like that.
It has a name.
Yeah, and it's
the
like,
Epstein drive. It was invented by this guy named Epstein. And that's all you need to know.
Different Epstein, no relation. Yeah.
Is it in this book where they explain that Epstein almost accidentally invented it and is just off light years away because he couldn't stop it? He just like kept going into space. Yeah, I think that's what happened.
Spoiler
I'm pretty sure there's a line in this book that explains that, but it's a throwaway line.
They mentioned the drive. I don't think that
they do say about, like, and now he's jetting off somewhere towards like this solar system. The world. It's just like
it's one line tucked in there that he's just
so funny.
Unfortunate. What a way to die.
Yeah.
So I already mentioned this kind of in our tavern talk, but I am going to highlight it just because I think it is such a great world building exercise, which is I really encourage you to add some sort of slang to your world building. Even if you don't, because you know we all know that you'll do way more world building than you ever actually use in your story, ideally. So even if you never actually end up using it, I think that even just coming up with some slang really forces you to get acquainted with your world, because it makes you think about people and you know how they interact with their world, what things are important to them, how did things shift over time. Like it gives you a sense of the history of like, oh, what words would come in, how would people start to twist these words, what words start being put in place of other words because something's important to people. So I think it's just a really good way to get yourself acquainted with your world, and then if you do end up including it with your story, it just gives it that extra layer of like feeling lived in that I think is so good. So strongly encourage you, write some slang for some of the different societies in your world.
My advice would be pair the big with the small. So you have, you know, in this, the big political machinations of the world and a whole war across the solar system. And then you have the small, investigating a missing person's case. Even with the station itself, Ceres, like, you could have spent a whole chapter explaining this whole entire thing. I mean, they do explain it fairly well. But instead, it's like, here's this big grimy station, and we zoom into a slimy bar and someone at the counter kind of thing, right? So taking those really big concepts and those big world building pieces and kind of drilling down into also some of those really small micro world building sets and feelings.
From here, it's time for Proprietor's Peek. Let's take a sneak peek at what we're going to be reading and discussing next month in the tavern. So next episode is going to be another world-building workshop. This, of course, is going to be inspired by Leviathan Wakes, and Allison is going to be guiding us through building a colony.
Yeah.
So that'll be very fun for us to build our whole society from the ground up. So definitely check that one out. And our next tavern episode is going to be airing July 1st, and we are going to be discussing the novella What Moves the Dead by T. Kingfisher. This is my pick. I'm very excited. This is one of my favorite authors. I love their books. It is a Edgar Allan Poe, The Fall of the House of Usher retelling through like a fantasy horror. It's super cool. I really love it. It's also a very short read, so if you want to read along with us and be all prepared for our episode, you can get it from bookshop.org, which is a book-selling site that supports us and an indie bookstore, so there is a link in the show notes, and I highly recommend that you read it because it is a great read, and then you'll get a gold star for doing your homework.
I would read T. Kingfisher's Grocery List. She's so good. I love her so much.
Absolutely. They're one of my authors where I'm like, anything that gets put out, I'm reading it immediately, like no matter what it is.
And she puts out a lot too.
Yeah. Like
prolific.
it feels like every few months there's a new book. I'm like, oh wow.
Which is nice. Nice for me.
Yeah. Unfortunately, this brings us to closing time. We'd love to stay longer, but this brown goo is not going to mop itself up.
Got it.
Nobody touch it. Nobody touch it. But what you should do is support the podcast by joining our Patreon, where you can access bonus world building workshop episodes from seasons past. A free way to show us love is by leaving a review on Apple Podcasts or your alternative podcatcher of choice. Find us online on our Discord, where we chat about books, writing, and world building, on TikTok, and at our website, www.worldbuilderstavern.com. We hope to serve you here again soon, but until next time, scram!
Bye!
Get out of here.